All right, today's May 21st, 2025. As a preliminary matter, this is Woody Knight, Chair of the Planning Board. Permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Planning Board members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Peter Pecos,
Yes, sir.
Larry Murphy,
Here.
Scott Kenter,
Yes, sir.
and Steve Mangian.
Yes, sir.
Very good. Town staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Kristen Grubbs, Planning Director.
Yes.
Very good. Applicants and representatives, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Tonight we have Town Council Attorney Lisa Mead with us.
Yes, I'm here.
Very good. Thank you, Lisa. Newbury Heights Attorney Mark Bobrowski. Will maybe join us soon. Newbury Heights Representative Mike Ives. Newbury Heights Representative Gerald Welch. Newbury Heights Engineer Christian Smith.
Yes, sir.
Very good. Cottages Commercial Vince Godin, Manager. Cottages Engineer Steve Sawyer, Millennium Engineering.
Vincent is here. Steve's not going to be able to make it. He had a Newburyport planning meeting today.
Okay, thank you, Vincent. We'll be with you shortly. Thank you for letting us know. And 84 Boston Road Representative Kevin Whitney. Well, the people that didn't respond, hopefully they'll be joining us soon. Good evening. The May 21st, 2025 open meeting of the Newbury Planning Board is being conducted remotely, consistent with Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2025, which extends the Governor's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, GLC 30A 20, until June 30th, 2027. For this meeting, the Newbury Planning Board is convening by video conference via Zoom, as posted on the Planning Board's agenda, which can be found at the town's website. You may join us by going to http://zoom.us and entering meeting ID number 832-7141-3056 and the passcode 108790, or by calling in 1929-205-6099 US and entering the meeting ID number and passcode when prompted. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that attendees are participating by video and/or telephone conference. The meeting is also being broadcast live through local access cable channel 9 on Zoom and at https://newburytv.wixsite.com/tnctv. And the recording will be available on the Newbury Access YouTube channel. Let me cover some meeting business ground rules. Before we turn the first item on the agenda, here are some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. As chair, I'll introduce each speaker on the agenda. After speakers conclude their remarks, I'll go down the list of board members, inviting each by name to provide any comments, questions, or motions. For all attendees except board members and staff, please remember to mute your audio when you are not speaking. On Zoom, the mute button, and on the phone, use *6 to toggle mute and unmute. There will be an opportunity for public comment and questions during the public hearing. After board members have spoken, I will afford the public an opportunity to comment and/or ask questions. I'll see questions and comments through the Zoom raised hand function. Video conference participants, to raise your hand, hover over the button of the Zoom window below the photo gallery and click on the image of the hand that appears. Please ensure your name is fully and correctly displayed on the participant list, and you may rename yourself by using the More function next to your name. Telephone participants, to raise your hand in a Zoom meeting, hit *9 on your phone keypad. I will then allow questions and comments from members of the public who have raised their hands in the order in which they are listed, which is determined by the order in which people click on the raised hand function. Each participant will be called on to provide his or her name and address, and then may ask questions or make a comment. Please do your best to keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. Your hand will be lowered when you have been given the floor for your question. I will afford the applicant or his or her representative the opportunity to reply. I will then continue down the list of those in the raised hand column, and again afford the applicant or representative an opportunity to speak. Should there be a written submittal of questions or concerns, they will be noted for the record. The participant, applicant, representative will be afforded the opportunity to speak if the issues raised have not yet been addressed. Finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by roll call vote. All right, the first thing on the agenda tonight, we have a submission. The applicant is the Cottages Commercial LLC. Vincent Godin, manager, applicant, representative. And Steve Sawyer, Millennium Engineering, and we've heard that Steve won't be here. Submission of a level 2 site plan review application, 2 and 8 Old Point Road. Assessors map U-O-2-O-153A. For an as-built constructed changes to the approved site plan of record in a proposed new 40 by 40 foot pavilion structure. So Vincent, welcome, and could we have a short description of your submission, please?
Sure. So what we are looking to accomplish here is to get approval for some changes that were done after from the point where this was last approved through the construction period, and then there was a shipping container dropped on there by the tenant that we're looking to get approved. And then on the corner where we had a fire on a building that had been there, we're looking to get approved a pavilion, 40 by 40 foot pavilion that will provide shade and help from rain, as has been happening a lot this season, for when people are having events or just sudden rain showers that come. So we've gone through the ZBA process and gotten our approvals. We have gotten our approvals for an NOI that covers the existing conditions on site right now, which includes the shed that was put on there. We are in the process of trying to finalize an amendment to include the pavilion with conservation. As I'm sure the board is aware, we've had Joe Schwartzka hired, who's reviewing that at the moment, and he's given some initial comments, and we've provided him some feedback to those comments, and we're working through those as well. So available for any questions.
Very good. Kristen, this is a submission. Do you want me to leave this open to the board for questions, or do we, should I just entertain a motion to accept the application?
Yeah, I think the application has been submitted and reviewed, and the board can accept the submission and then set a date for the public hearing.
Okay, thank you. I'd entertain a motion to set a public hearing date for June 18th at 7:15 on Zoom for a site plan review of the Cottages Commercial LLC Sunset Club Restaurant at 2-8 Old Point Road.
I'm so moved. Second.
Do I have a second? Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Larry. All those in favor? Peter Pecos?
Yes, sir.
This is roll call vote, by the way. Larry?
Yes.
Scott Kenter
Yes, sir.
and Steve Mangian,
Yes.
and I vote yes as well. Thank you, Vince, and we'll see you on the 18th of June.
Great. Thank you.
All right, have a good night.
Have a good night. You too.
All right, next item on the agenda, liaison and meeting report. Larry, I'll start with you, with ZBA.
Thank you, Woody. The ZBA met last week on the 15th. They signed a decision granting a variance for the property at 11 and properties, I should say, at 11 and 15 Sunset Drive. And these were dimensional variances. The next stop for the applicant will be the planning board for an approval not required plan because they did redraw the lot lines. And then they have to go back to the ZBA for a special permit. So they've got a few hoops to jump through. They also took up the decision for 80 Northern Boulevard. Again, it's a special permit to raise an existing dwelling and the construction of a new single-family dwelling, again, at 80 Northern Boulevard. So they voted to have a decision drafted in that case. There was a public hearing scheduled for 2 Plum Island Boulevard. That's the Plum Island Grill property. It was continued at the applicant's request, but this is a petition to take down the restaurant building and to build 4 condexes to be housed in 2 separate structures. I think something that will probably generate a lot of interest. And they also approved a decision and directed it be drafted for 120 Northern Boulevard. And that's all I have.
Very good, thank you, Larry. Next is Conservation Commission. We met last night. We had a deck replacement and second form of egress for 37 Northern Boulevard. We had 80, I believe it was 80 Northern Boulevard for the demolition of a structure in single-family home. And we had a brief discussion on the process for Sunset Club, and that was about it that I can recall. Next on liaison meeting reports, MVPC, Kristen?
So the MVPC monthly planners meeting is tomorrow, so I don't have an update on that. I did attend their MPO, which is the transportation planning arm of MVPC, had their monthly meeting today, and they're going through sort of a federal review of their operations. So I made a public comment that I thought MVPC does an excellent job with their transportation team supporting the work of small towns like Newbury. And there's a long review process with public comment. So if anyone's interested in that in particular, regional transportation planning review, you can check it out on MVPC's website.
Very good. Thank you, Kristen.
Yep.
Okay, I have 7:15 on the dot. So we'll get into tonight's public hearing. Larry, could you read the legal notice for tonight's public hearing, please?
I will. So this was published in the Newburyport Daily News on May 7th and May 14th, 2025. This is Town of Newbury Planning Board Public Hearing Notice. On Wednesday, May 21st, 2025 at 7:15 p.m., the Newbury Planning Board will hold a virtual public hearing pursuant to Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 48, Section 11, and Newbury Zoning Bylaw, Section 97(9)A, Site Plan Review, and Section 97(4)G, MBTA Communities Multifamily Overlay District, to consider a Level 2 Site Plan Review application for Massachusetts Housing Opportunities Corporation for a 44-unit residential development on the 10.5-acre property located at 34 Central Street, map R19, lot 19, owners Melody and Robert Pritchard. The application is on file with the town clerk and in the planning office, 12 Kent Way, Byfield, Mass., and may be viewed on and downloaded from the town's website at https://www.townofnewbury.org/planning-board/pages/current-project-applications-and-plans. For more information or to obtain a copy of the application materials, contact the planning office at 978-465-0862, extension 312 or 336. Interested persons may participate in the hearing remotely via Zoom from their computer, tablet, or smartphone at TTPS://us02web/zoom.us//83271413056, passcode 108790, or by telephone by calling 1-929-205-6099 US and using meeting ID 832-714-3056, or may watch the meeting live on local access cable channel 9 or at ttps://newburytv.wixsite.com/TNCTV by Woody Knight, Chair, Newbury Planning Board.
Okay, thank you, Larry. Next, I'd like to introduce and welcome Town Council Attorney Lisa Mead, and thank you for participating in this process and helping us along with our first MBTA communities multifamily overlay district process, public hearing. Thank you, Lisa. Project representatives, I'd like to welcome you. Attorney Mark Bobrowski, Michael Ives, and Gerald Welch, Massachusetts Housing Opportunities Corporation, Christian Smith, Beals Engineering, and if there's any other consultants and at the time that you'd like to speak, please identify yourself.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mark Bobrowski for the applicant. My office is in Concord, Massachusetts. I'm pleased to be with you this evening on behalf of just a brief overview, and then I'm going to turn it over to Christian Smith from Beals Associates to walk you through with a little bit more detail. We also have Jeff Dirk, who's traffic engineer, and he's available. I'm sure he'll brief presentation, but he's here to answer questions if anybody has some. This is an application for 44 townhomes located on 10 acres at 34 Central Street in Newbury. The proposal is for 13 buildings in total, 8 of which have 3 units and 5 of which have 4 units. The bedroom mix has been diversified in order to have 32 2-bedroom units, 7 3-bedroom units, and 5 1-bedroom units. The prices of the units will be at market rate, with the exception of 4 or 10%, which will be priced as affordable. And the project will be served by town water and a local on-site septic system under 5. The parcel itself has about 10 acres, and we thank the town for designating it under the MBTA community zoning bylaw. This is the first project worked on north of Lexington, so it's good to see that the MBTA projects are taken. I'm going to turn it over to Christian Smith, and he'll take you through some details, including the layout, amenities, architectural questions you might have.
Thank you, Mark,
Okay.
and good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Again, Christian Smith, engineer with Beals Associates, here representing the applicants on the project. And what I thought I would start by doing is just kind of walking through our view of compliance with the new zoning ordinance. And I'll be very brief on that. Then I can walk through the plans and quickly touch on the other consultants conclusions in their reports. I won't attempt to try and get all of their information in. And then obviously, as Mark has previously mentioned, Jeff Dirk from Vanessa and Associates is here with us tonight to be able to answer and address any potential traffic questions that may come up. And I would start with the multifamily is allowed without special use permit. The general density is required in the ordinance is 8 units per acre. With the 10.01 acres on the property, that would result in 80 units allowed for this property. We are proposing 44. Minimum of 50% open space. We have about 56.1 slated as open space on this proposal. The proposed private road and right-of-way to be owned and maintained by the association. Dimensional standards and parking requirements are either met or exceeded in all cases. As Mark previously mentioned, 10% or 4 of the units will be affordable. That would be by deed restriction and in perpetuity. The design standards are met. In other words, building and street construction materials reflect those that can be found locally. Specific to pedestrian travel encouraged, we are proposing sidewalks and a passive recreation walking trail through the open space forest that will remain. The open space is contiguous and accessible by all buildings. The lighting and landscaping conform to the requirement. Native species and shade trees will be provided for streets and drives. Lighting conforms to IESNA and is proposed to be minimal simply for traffic safety. Obviously, there will be the standard safety lighting at access ways and entryways into the houses themselves. The road design was designed to result in a minimum impervious surface to the best of our ability. Trash collection will be by local private pickup weekly, and trash bins, they're typically handed out by the hauling company, will be stored within garages and obviously placed at the curb for the local pickup day. Specific to architecture, the standards in Section E are met, with facades being broken into smaller vertical and horizontal components with changes in color, finished materials, and physical features such as dormers and things of that nature. The materials conform to E2, which is, basically requires clapboard, stone, asphalt shingles, etc. And energy compliant and Energy Star rated appliances will be utilized in all of these units. And Kristen, you tell me, do you want to put the plans up, or am I allowed to share the screen?
You should be able to do it, Christian. If not, I'll be back up.
Okay, let me give it a whirl. And just let me know if you guys can see that.
We see your screen, but it's only partial view. At least I don't, oh, there you go.
Okay, so this is kind of the overview of the parcel. I've walked the board through this very briefly at our initial meeting, and I will just cover some very, very quick items that kind of lead from the MBTA compliance discussion I just had. So this is the entirety of the parcel. The dark green is what is intended to remain forested. The kind of drab olive green, that is the sole wetland on the property. And the lighter green would be grassed areas at the end of the development. You can see the buildings as Mark described them, as well as the loop road that comes in from Central, loops back onto itself before exiting. And my next slide here just has a slightly blown up view, which shows the grading. So I can just kind of go through, as I believe I mentioned before, we're proposing curbs and sidewalks, which leads us to a closed drainage system, which is consists of a system of catch basins, drainage manholes, and about approximately this area drains down into a sediment forebay here with a riprap or jagged stone weir overflow into the first bioretention pond at this location. Down here as well, we have the proposed pull-off for the mail kiosk, as well as a bus stop for the residents' children. Just to stick with the drainage, so the remainder of the property and at least the road and much of the buildings drain in the southwesterly or southeasterly direction into a sediment forebay at this location and a larger bioretention pond. As you can see, kind of delineated here, that interior contour would be the pond's bottom. But same sort of scenario, a rock weir allows it to overflow. We have an outlet device structure with a pipe that connects to erosion control apron, and then an emergency overflow, which we, under the storms we evaluated, I don't believe that actually tops the weir, the exit weir, so the water would be contained within that through all storms that were evaluated. The water main will come in from Central Street, and very quickly on that, Tom Cusack and I have been in touch, and we are tentatively on the Byfield Water Commissioners Board meeting of June 11th, which I think will work out perfectly fine. There may be, we will know for certain after that meeting, some flow testing that they want to do. But in Tom's just brief estimate of his knowledge of the water main out here, he felt that this is one of the larger mains in town, and he thinks that, you know, water volume and quality are not going to be an issue for this project. That would lead us to the septic system design down in this location, out behind what we're calling Building 4. And so the homes that collect down to the low point, excuse me, will be pumped up to the septic tanks. Everything else from the top of the hill here, gravity drain into these septic tanks, which then goes down into a distribution box, which will equally split the flow into 3 separate enviroseptic fields. Those are the plastic tubes with the fabric wrap, so that the actual bacterial treatment of the water, of the wastewater, to get the nutrients out and treat it to effluent standards is done at that point, and it will be obviously complete before the water from that, the effluent from that, infiltrates into the soil below. We are proposing a small dog park in this location. We have community gardens down here. They don't look very big at this scale, but I believe those are all actually 20 by 40 beds that, you know, the community members can utilize. We will have 2 small, just basically grass parks that folks can utilize to hang out, put up lawn chairs, have picnics, whatever. And then you can almost go off page a little bit, but essentially from this park location, this dash line that I'm following with my mouse, if you guys can see that, goes just off page, is our walking trail. We do not intend to cut trees for this. We do not intend to put down stone dust or wood mulch. It is simply going to be a trail that kind of follows some of the existing trails out there. We will flag it or put placards on trees so that people don't get turned in the wrong direction. And then that comes out behind the fire station here and ultimately back up to the sidewalk at this location. And these are just the existing conditions plans. If anybody has any specific questions on those, I can go through them, but otherwise I will just quickly zip through those. We're having some regeneration problems with the PDFs, but here we show the proposed planting by our landscape architect. You can see there are a system of trees and shrubs and street trees, again, as required in the ordinance. Nothing very elaborate, but with the, amount of natural forest that is remaining after this project is constructed, I think it's going to be quite good looking. And from there, I will take you over to just show you the different unit types. This is one of the 3-unit buildings. You can see the garages. This one has a 2-car garage. The other 2 have singles. And I'm gonna have to pop this down. This might mess up your view for a second here. This would be an alternate of a 3-unit building. And again, you can see how they tried to treat the facade, break up both the architecture and the color scheme and the textures of the finished product of the siding, to really try and stay in line with the ordinance. And this is just another one of a similar sort of a layout for those buildings. They're quite attractive. I know that Gavin and Sullivan, our architects, have put a lot of time into, looking at that very closely. And while we're talking about architecture, if it is okay with the chair, we have a little video, which is kind of a fly-through video. It's only about 1.5 minutes long that they put together. I'd like to play that for the board, if I may.
Yes, go right ahead.
All right, we'll turn that down.
Thank you.
And let's see. This is coming in off of Central Street. We just went by the mail kiosk. This would be the first building on the right. And I thought they did a very nice job of actually looking at what the proposed planting scheme was from the landscape architect. Obviously they've got the AutoCAD files of the civil drawings, but I think this is going to be a very, very close depiction, of the finished product. Coming up around the first corner at the top of the loop, if you will. As we come around this corner, down, well, we're going to run right by it, but down off to the right, there would have been one of the larger stormwater treatment facilities, the bioretention pond. And then just the lower side, or the side of the private road that is going to be running virtually parallel with Central. And then it will connect back out to itself. And heading back down towards Central Ave, or Central Street, excuse me. Again, the mail kiosk, possible sign there. And I think with that, we can probably go back to the site plan. And I'll get us up to the ones that show color. It looks like the profiles are populating. As you can see, I think we've got about a 2.5% road grade at the maximum, but I'll get us back to the color plan that people can see to make the most sense of. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I will just finish with touching base quickly on the really just the conclusions of our other consultants on the project. Norse Environmental did not only the ANRAD with the Conservation Commission and their third-party reviewer, but did our environmental impact analysis. And essentially her closing statement is that the Newbury Heights project improves the existing conditions, provides 50% open space, community gardens, dog park, and walking trails. The proponent is pleased with the project design as it protects the wetland resources, provides open space, stormwater management, and much needed housing for the town of Newbury. And yeah, the key takeaway on that, in my opinion, is the fact that we're actually improving the site conditions. And I think by that she means, at this point, we've got essentially a poultry farm. And, those hen houses and all of the animals are pretty much free roaming out behind the existing house, which is roughly in this location. It's right up front here. And, there's really nothing preventing them from walking into that wetland resource area or anything. And obviously that will be completely eliminated as part of this proposal. And then I will, again, just read the conclusion from Jeff Dirk's traffic evaluation, his traffic impact analysis. And essentially, he lists a series of 5 summary items and then concludes with, in consideration of the above, we've concluded that the project can be accomplished within the confines of the existing transportation infrastructure in a safe and efficient manner with the implementation, of the recommendations that follow below. And I mean, I can read those to you, or if you're interested, perhaps we could have Jeff talk to those. And then final piece of my presentation before I turn it back to you guys for questions and comments is the fiscal impact analysis that was done by Fougere Land Planning. And he has a very quick summary of findings, which is as follows. The proposed development will result in a gross net revenue total, estimated gross net revenue totaling $255,429 and an annual anticipated cost of $110,735, which leaves us a net, a positive to the town of $144,694 annually. He goes on to say the property tax payments will increase substantially over current payments. Increased emergency call volume will be modest for both police and fire departments. Building permit fees will generate significant revenue for the community. Limited measurable impacts are foreseen by other town departments. Chapter 70 aid may increase with the addition of new students. And finally, the analysis does not consider intangible economic benefits of creating additional jobs for the area, providing additional homeowners to support local businesses, or providing much needed new multifamily home ownership housing within the municipality. And with that, Kristen, I guess I'll ask you, do you want me to leave this graphic up as we move forward with board questions and comments?
I think that's fine. Woody,
Okay.
do you have an opinion?
No, that's good for now, as each speaker,
And
person.
just let me know, Mr. Chairman, if you want me to stop sharing and I can take that right down.
Mr.
Okay,
Chairman, do you want to hear from Jeff Dirk briefly, or do you prefer to deal with him by having questions from the board or the audience? Jeff's an expert in traffic, and I'm sure he can be brief.
Go right ahead.
All right,
Yes,
Jeff,
yes,
I'm
available.
sorry if I'm catching you off balance, but would you take the mic?
Sure. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, Jeffrey Dirk with Vanessa and Associates, with the transportation consultants on the project. Mr. Chairman, I think as you heard from, and members of the board, as you heard from Christian Smith, our office prepared a detailed transportation impact assessment for the project, which I'm happy to get into the details of that as necessary. I think Christian gave an overview of what the findings of the assessment are. We did evaluate the Central Street corridor, including the interchange with I-95, and then extending southerly to the Orchard Street intersection. As a part of our assessment, we collect existing traffic volume data on the roadways. We also look at speed of traffic, as well as motor vehicle crashes and sight lines at the access point to the project that Christian had described to you. So as we undertook our evaluation and looked at how this project would impact conditions on the roadway, and what we're looking at in terms of impacts are measurements of motorist delay and vehicle queuing along the roadway, Central Street, and at those intersections before and after the addition of the traffic from the project is added. And what we found, as Christian had said, is that we did not find that there was a significant increase in delays or queuing at any intersections. I think we quantified the project impacts as an increase in delay of less than 15 seconds. And that any queuing, so backup of vehicles that you might see getting off of Interstate 95, let's say, did not go up by any more than one vehicle. The reason for that is that this project is expected to produce somewhere around 20 peak hour trips. So one additional vehicle every 3 minutes during the peak hours on the roadway. So if you think about when traffic volumes on Central Street are at their highest level, they're peaking, the project would add about 20 trips to what you see out there today. That level of increase of traffic was not found to result in any significant increase in delays or queuing at any locations. So our recommendations really deal with access into the property, circulation within the site, and then I think importantly is the town had asked that we look at pedestrian infrastructure off-site, so walkability and where a proper crossing of Central Street would occur. So as Christian has walked you through the site plan, he's incorporated all of our recommendations in terms of roadway width, locations of sidewalks within the site, that sidewalk extends out to Central Street. Then when you come out to Central Street, we have recommendations to make sure that the sight lines, so looking to the left or right as you're exiting the property, that you can see a vehicle approaching you along Central Street and safely complete either an entering maneuver or an exiting maneuver. And we've confirmed that that can take place. We did recommend that there's, as I know you're all very familiar with the property, it is highly vegetated on the Central Street side. And I think if you look at Christian's plan here, you can see the curvature of the road as you travel to the south and to the east from the site. So there is some need in that area there to trim up some of that vegetation, which is really low growing kind of scrub type of vegetation within the public right of way. So we had recommended that take place. And again, the fact that the road is curving away from you as you look to the right, that's why it necessitates the clearing of the vegetation. Looking to the west or northwest, you don't have that same limitation. So sight lines in that direction are highly favorable, far exceed what's required for safety. So we have some recommendations as they relate to that access point to make sure that we've got proper sight lines. And then looking off-site in terms of that pedestrian infrastructure that we were talking about. So the sidewalks essentially end at Central Court on the south or project side of Central Street. So in order for a pedestrian to get to the existing sidewalk facilities, what we've recommended is sidewalk extends up to Central Street from within the project site, which Kristen has done. That then a sidewalk segment be constructed along Central Street on the south side to get you to Central Court. At Central Court, you then provide a crosswalk with wheelchair ramps on either side. And then evaluate the sidewalk basically from that point after it crosses Central Street up to the existing crossing at Fruit Street. That crossing at Fruit Street as well, we've recommended that there is an existing crosswalk there. That's where a crosswalk should be located because it's at an intersection. You don't generally put crosswalks in the middle of a roadway, including at driveways. So the proper place for a crosswalk would be at a public street or an intersection of two public streets. So the closest public street where you could have a crossing of Central Street that would meet that criteria is at Fruit Street. Sight lines there are very well for a crossing, so it's a good location. However, you would need a wheelchair ramp on either side. So that crossing today does not have a wheelchair ramp on either side. And in fact, on the north side or on the Fruit Street side, there's not a sidewalk there. So you'd need a sidewalk piece to have a wheelchair ramp constructed. So we've recommended that all be undertaken as a part of this project, which would then complete a sidewalk loop in this area. The sidewalk on the north side of Central Street continues all the way to the I-95 interchange and then westerly thereafter. So this level of improvement would provide that complete sidewalk connectivity down to the project site. There is not public transportation access directly in this area. There is the ME-VA dial-a-ride service. That's an on-demand service so that a resident in this project, it's offered for all residents from Newbury as well as surrounding communities. But it's a demand responsive service where they don't provide public transportation or regularly scheduled public transportation services. So given that this is a multifamily residential community, there will be some form of active management that will take place. So we've recommended that as a part of the management of this property, that the residents are made aware of the services that are offered by the town. So council on aging, those other type of services that might be available for transportation, as well as that ME-VA service, so that they're aware of the fact that they do have dial ride opportunities. The town being a participant and they pay into ME-VA, and I heard the planner mentioning about coordination with the Regional Planning Association. Your services through those organizations, they provide this type of dial-a-ride service for the community. So we want to make sure the residents are aware of that that's something that's available within the community. So that's a high-level overview of our assessment of the project, Mr. Chairman. I'd be happy to answer any questions the board has now or later on in the evening.
Mr. Chairman, let me just conclude if you would, and then we'll be happy to answer questions on any of the topics that we've covered. I want to leave folks with a positive message here. One is that we're only using half the permissible density. 80 units on the property, we're only putting 44. And that's a conscious choice on our part, given the site design that we want to accomplish. We are creating some multifamily housing, which is good for the town in that it'll allow older persons to live in the community by downsizing, selling their homes and moving into a smaller unit. Provide a startup for younger families that want to buy a first unit, earn some equity, and move on to a single family house. 4 of the units will be affordable in perpetuity. That's important. We expect that there will be no more than 8 to 12 schools generated by the project, given the 44 units, and that's contained in Mr. Fougere's report. And lastly, Mr. Fougere projects $144,000 annually in net revenue. That's positive revenue for the community. Today, the site is generating $4,460 in taxes. So that's an increase of $100,000 annually in revenue from the site. And that includes excise tax as well as property tax. So with that, I'll ask if you have any questions for our team.
All right. Thank you, Jeffrey. Thank you, Bob. Now, I'll go through the board for questions and comments. I'll start with Peter. Peter, do you have any questions or comments for the applicant?
Sure, thanks, Woody. Yeah, I do have some comments, and I'm very excited about the concept of this project. This is something the community's been looking forward to, and it fits the direction of the BTA communities bylaw, which we really pushed for. I do have a couple comments, and Attorney Borowski, I just wanted to. Did you say these units would be bought? Are these going to be condos or are these going to be apartments? Just for clarification.
They're condominium units. They will be sold.
Okay.
And as I said, 10% or 4 units will be affordable units.
Okay, that's great. I appreciate that clarification. And Christian, I'm just going to go back to you to a comment that I made when we first looked at this project. And I've had an opportunity to look at the traffic report. I know we'll have our own traffic consultant to look at that. So we'll have a more detailed traffic discussion at another future hearing. But, I have strong concerns with the traffic, the entrance being on and off Central, as I, explained to you when you first made the introduction comments. I think Central Court's a much safer option. I know you have wetlands over there, but, I'm a guy who drives slow. I'll just tell you that. I'm a poker. My kids always tell me that I drive too slow, so I drive the speed limit. And when I'm going west down Central Street and I hit that little hill and that little curve, you have about 3 seconds to react before you get to that building. Now, I drive the speed limit, and I'd be very, very concerned with anybody that goes faster than the speed limit, people entering in and out of that. And I think that, your line of sight is great on the left, going west, but going east, I'm really, really concerned with that curve. And I think having the entrance, come off Central Court makes a much safer smoother transition for traffic mitigation. And yeah, I know the word. So I'm expressing that. I'll express it again. I know other board members have a similar concern. So I was hoping that I was going to see a design that would kind of bring that into concept. So I leave that to you, Christian. Those are my comments, and I'm sure we'll have many more discussions. Thanks very much, Woody.
And thank you, Peter. Mr. Chairman, would you prefer we address these as they come up, or do you want us to wait and try and address the questions en masse?
You can address Peter's comments and concerns if you'd like.
Okay. Yeah, and certainly we did look at that. That was definitely part of you know, what the thought process was after our initial meeting. You know, however, you hit the nail on the head. We were really trying to avoid the wetland or any wetland impact. And there is, in fact, a culvert that runs across Central Court from this wetland that essentially is the drainage for it. What little that provides. You know, and having then reviewed the Vanessa traffic report, we felt that, well, maybe we do have it in the right place, and other things can be done, you know, to address those concerns. So I would defer to Jeff on that. And again, as you mentioned, you know, this is going to get fully peer reviewed by the town's traffic professional, and I'm sure we will work through the fine details of that when that happens.
Okay, thank you, Christian. Larry Murphy, do you questions or comments, please?
Yeah, just a few, Woody. Thank you. We've got a 5-page peer review letter from Joe Sawatka. Do you intend to provide a written response to that? We typically have the benefit of a written response to the peer reviewer.
Oh, yes, of course. And a portion of that was specific to the requirement of Title V to have a 100% replacement area of a conventionally sized trench system. Because utilizing the EnviroSeptic fields, you actually get a 40% reduction from the standard size of the stone and pipe trenches. And we figured out we have enough room for that down here as a kind of replace in kind. And then I'm really actually glad, Mr. Murphy, you brought this up, because just last week, due to the weather, we finally got out there with Mr. Sawatka. We did additional test pits, and if you can see this kind of trapezoidal area here that is hatched in red, kind of a red crosshatch, all 4 of the test pits and 2 perk tests in that location all passed, so that will be our reserve area. We did do an additional 2 test pits down where the actual field is proposed. The reason for that is one of the original test pits that was done back in November is covered by a building, and the other one fell just into the Zone 1 or Zone A if you're looking at DEP nomenclature. So we did 2 additional test pits a little lower down the hill and 2 additional perk tests down here. So that was all taken care of. We are actively working through, we've got the bulk of it addressed. It's just getting down to the final details on the septic design based on the new test pit data, which we have. And I guess I'll finish with, we have notified our surveyor that, you know, those test pits need to be survey field located. And they, I believe, have that in their work queue for next week. So we'll have the actual physical locations of those pits. And I anticipate either next week or early the following week. I just now recalling as I say that Monday's a holiday. The full response to Joe's memo, and that will be provided to the planning office, you know, concurrently with responding to Mr. Sawatka.
Can I say just a word about peer review and responses to peer review? We intend to make a written response to every peer review comment that we get from all of your
Yes.
peer reviewers.
Yeah.
So I think we might want to talk at some point about dedicating a meeting to traffic, or dedicating a meeting to wastewater, or dedicating a meeting to architecture. But because we have a team of experts, it's kind of clumsy sometimes to have three people sitting there waiting their turn while the fourth is talking to the board and the peer reviewer. But if you'll permit, I'll work with council, your council, to try to organize that. But we do expect to make a full report in writing with regard to all your peer reviews.
Good, thank you. That's, if we could talk about what's the distance between your driveway and the central court intersection?
It's approximately 125 feet measured from the near side curb line to near side curb line.
Yeah, it doesn't look that distant. I'm not questioning you, but as much as just making an observation that in the plan I have, it just doesn't look like it's a full 125 feet, but I'll just make that as an observation.
It's 125. Did I say? I'm sorry if you heard 425. It's 100.
No, 125. I heard you. I'm working off the plan, which admittedly is not to scale, but I was getting something less than that. Just trying to extrapolate from the scale that I have. As for Central Court, would you be open to at least looking at the idea of improving that intersection? Perhaps there might be some way to bring it in at a 90-degree angle for Central Street, and maybe even provide a right turn lane. Not trying to get ahead of our own peer review traffic study, but I'll just throw that out.
We'd like to hear from your peer reviewer, but we'll certainly consider reasonable recommendation peer reviewer.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I don't think anything is off the table, Mr. Murphy. You know, if it makes sense, I think the development team will consider it.
I appreciate that. Oh, and the walking trails, my last comment for tonight anyway. Are those intended to be public or just for use of the project?
Currently just intended for the residents.
You do or do not?
They would not be intended for public use. It would just
Okay,
be for
thank
the
you.
residents.
All right. I think that's all I have for now, Woody.
All right, thank you, Larry. Scott Kinton, do you have any questions or comments?
Yes, I've got a few, Woody. Thank you. Mark, Christian, and Jeffrey, thank you for a very thoughtful presentation, and also your willingness to actually listen and your consideration, particularly with the last comment by Larry, which was something that I was actually going to ask. But having said that, just a few questions. I really appreciate the video. That was pretty cool. The video looked like they were about the street trees were about 6-inch in caliper, which is very, very healthy. We would, I think, love to see those size trees, at least on the street. Was that the plan, Christian, or have you gotten down to the brass tacks on the landscape design yet? But I'd be interested to hear what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, at the time of planting, that is the lighting plan. Let's see. I'm gonna have to zoom in here because my aging eyes are very bad. So it looks like the bulk of the trees are intended to be 3-inch caliper at the time of planting. And I can certainly, confer with our landscape architect specific to how quickly she anticipates those, would grow to double their planted size. That would be for the deciduous trees, and then it appears the The conifers or the evergreens look to be one species is 6 to 7. The white spruce are 8 to 9 feet at the time of planting. So again, for essentially nursery stock, those are pretty decent tree plantings.
Mm-hmm. Appreciate that. I appreciate the detail. What about the I hope I'm not being too granular here, but on the just back to the design, really on the elevations, looks like they're good looking buildings. Are the products, are they going to be vinyl? What any idea on what those products might be? Vertical hardy board, horizontal cedar. Looks like I would absolutely love to see some, cedar shake, up in the gables, but we certainly can't require that. But what's your thought there?
Yeah, I think that that the bulk of it is going to be clapboard. You can see that the bottom half of some of these units have actual stone facades. And that, asphalt shingles, that kind of thing. I believe that is the plan. I don't believe this is intended to be vinyl. And if I'm saying something that's incorrect, I'm certain I will get my hand slapped from the architects. But that is the understanding, is that this is going to be, it's going to be not native necessarily, but locally sourced stone, wood clapboards, asphalt shingles, etc.
Okay, looking forward to hearing some more. On the Larry asked a question about the walking trail. And I think I heard that it was really a walking trail for the community, not the overall community, but your housing community here.
The residents of the development, yes.
Right. Does would it need to be ADA compliant? Any idea on that?
I don't think it does, because again, it's just a passive recreation trail. My assumption would be anybody with a physical disability that would prevent them from being able to, walk a woods trail, would simply utilize the sidewalk areas.
Okay. I would just suggest that you maybe look deeply more into that.
We certainly will.
Yeah, we don't want to get too far down the road without an understanding of what that requirement might be, and then at the end, having the state or the feds come in and say we missed on this.
Got it. Yep.
And the I thought I saw maybe a school bus shanty out front. Is that the plan?
Yes, sir. And that was in actuality one of the questions we had for you folks at our prior meeting. So this would be the school bus stop area for the children to wait, when the bus comes. And the question I had, because obviously you can see this is the parent parcel setback as set forth in the zoning ordinance. So this is within that, and of course it is proposed to have a roof, Mr. Kinter, because if it's a rainy day, would like to think the kids don't all have to be standing out there under umbrellas. And I did read something in that regulation specific to roofed structures not being allowed. And I mean, essentially, this is roughly a pavilion for the most part, but it will have a roof, and that's one of the other pieces we were looking for some guidance from you folks on, as to is that going to be problematic? Could that be handled by a waiver if it is problematic? And really would like to get to the bottom of that if you folks have an opinion.
I appreciate that. I think we may have an opinion on that, but we could probably just continue on
Yeah, that's perfectly fine. I just wanted to put the thought out there, and then, you know, obviously collectively as a board, you guys can think about it and come up with what your interpretation of that section of the code would be.
I think the location is good. You know, it's off of Central Street, doesn't obstruct really any sight lines. But you know, great question, and I'm looking forward to maybe having some more conversation.
Yeah, it sounds great. And just really quickly, if you can see my mouse, we could slide it back in here if it does become problematic, but I think the location, you know, is certainly better where it is. Would not be ideal right next to the driveway for unit 10-1. But, you know, again, there are alternatives that we can do and get it out of that parent parcel buffer if that is deemed to be you know, a problem.
Okay, appreciate that. My last question is on the affordable units. Will the affordable units be of the same finished quality, and will they be not all in one building? Will they be spread around, you know, to you know, the other buildings, maybe having an even?
Yeah, correct. That's my understanding. And I know Mike Ivas is on. If I am misspeaking, I'm certain he can pipe in and let me know that. But as I understand it, they will not all be in one building. And I believe that for them to, you know, actually be credited as such, they need to be finished basically identically to the other homes.
The usual rule of thumb, Mr. Chairman, is that the finishes in the affordable units are the base finishes, and that if anybody in a market rate unit wants to, they have to pay for it. But we certainly cannot segregate the affordable units in one building, for example. They will be dispersed.
Yeah, so in other words, and Mark, if I'm hearing you correctly, and I believe that I am, the builder grade, you know, like with any new home, here's your builder grade options for your interior fit up, your appliances, your counters, your cupboards, blah blah blah, the whole thing, water closets, appliances, etc. And if people want to spend more money on higher end finishes, they are welcome to do that. But yeah, so they're going to be the same base model or builder grade package as every other home out here. You know, interior fit ups or improvements or upgrades would be basically at the homeowner's discretion and expense.
Yes, that's the way it generally works in affordable housing. And you know, we can't make the base level finishes you know, cardboard. They have to be a quality-based finish. But there would be no, for example, if somebody wanted marble countertops, that would be an upgrade that they would have to pay for, whereas the base level might be something like Corian.
I haven't seen Corey and Mark in about 10 years, but
I haven't redone my kitchen in 10 years. I'm sorry for dating myself.
But you know, I would think, you know, quartz might be you know, the base, and you know, quartzite might be, you know, the upgrade. There may be, you know, a handful of level of finishes, but I guess I'm only mentioning it just to maybe raise awareness, really, to the development team, that it needs to be, whatever the responsibilities or whatever the requirements are, you know, under the statute, you know, it'd be wise to follow them to the T.
We agree. Thank you.
Yes, without question. And we just a couple of years ago went through with a different development team a very similar project in the town of Rye, New Hampshire, and that was only happened to be a much smaller parcel. It was only 5 buildings, but it was the exact same conversation, and that's how it went, because I think those regulations are actually federal.
Well, okay, that's all I have for tonight, but on this project. But thank you very, very much for your time, the presentation, and answering the questions thoughtfully and to the point.
Okay, thank you, Scott, and thank you. Next is Steve Mangian, and before I have Steve answer questions, Steve's still with us, correct?
Yes, I am.
Okay, Steve, go ahead and ask your questions, and Peter, steer the ship. I will be right back.
Sure. I confess I do not have a question to ask at this time. I am struck by how the applicant seems willing to listen to what we've been discussing and work with us and respond to us. So I anticipate another good meeting when we next gather together. So
Okay.
thank you.
Okay, thank you, Steve. All right, I'll hold off on a minute, but I do have to leave for a moment. I have a few questions and comments. One, which has been expressed previously, is the road. I would really, I know we're gonna have a traffic study and there's gonna be some more conversation in the future, but I would really like to see your driveway pop out on Central Court. Then there's no new intersections on Central Court. I think for safety reasons, it would be wise to do that. And also, as you're pulling out of there with your headlights on, you're not shining them on houses across the street. The other thing that was mentioned previously by you guys, by the applicants, I forget who actually said it, but there's a culvert there. I was there for the ANRAD verification, and I witnessed the culvert. But if you turn around and look at Central Street towards Pearson Plaza, towards the highway, and even to the right towards the Byfield Fire Station, that culvert is lower than everything around it. And I'm not sure if that culvert, if water's going into that culvert. I think water is coming out of that culvert. So that's something to investigate and figure out in the future here, because I don't believe that's an exit. I believe that's an exit. So that can be addressed in the future. And I would, like I said, I would really like to see the road come out on Central Court. I think for safety reasons and practicality, it would be best. And we can discuss that further in the future. And there'll be peer review as well, and traffic. Another concern I have is that, well, I'll start with this one. The site's bony. There's a lot of rocks in particular places in that site, and I'm curious as to maybe, I'm sure you're aware of it because you've gone through this presentation and everything. But I was just curious as to what your plan is with the rocks. Was it to blast, hammer, and do you anticipate any ledge?
Well, surprisingly, we did not hit any ledge in all of the test pitting we did on this parcel, which was significant. Now, of course, there's a large cut at the top of the hill, to make the roadway grades work and make the pads for the buildings inside the circle. So could there be some ledge removal required there potentially? But certainly the larger rocks, the boulders, my understanding, the intent would be to utilize that in a crushing operation to create road-based gravel to the extent possible. And I'm guessing based on what we saw in there, Mr. Chairman, in the deep holes that we did, is much of that is going to be able to be excavated, and utilized in that fashion. However, if we get down to a point where we are subsurface and we find that there is legitimate ledge that needs to be removed, it will likely be hammerable with a rock hammer. And that's how I would see that going if that's the case. If it does need to be blasted, obviously all of the requisite regulations will be followed. The pre-blast surveys with all of the neighbors within, I think I think it's 1,000 feet. I could be incorrect on that citation, but there is a pretty big litany of pre-blast survey information. Anybody that's actually utilizing a potable water well, that'll have to get tested pre and post. If there is a blasting operation, our hope is that we will not end up in a situation where we have to blast ledge. But in the event that we do, it will be done by a professional company who's been in the business for decades, and they know all of the proper procedures, and they will be followed and adhered to.
Okay, thanks for that explanation. My concerns of A, the blasting, and then B, the noise of hammering and everything, and if you could do your best to keep it at a minimal for the surrounding neighbors.
Of course.
You know, something to consider and something to discuss in the future as well, so I don't want to take up too much time on that. And, traffic, there'll be other stuff that comes up in the future that I have questions about, but the last thing I'd like to bring up is, the name Newbury Heights. Newbury's a community of 3 precincts. It's made up of Newbury, Byfield, and Plum Island. Newbury has its zip code 01950, 01951. And Byfield has its own zip code 01922. And with this project being in the community of Byfield, in precinct 2, with its own zip code, I would ask that maybe you consider changing it to Byfield Heights, just for the sake of any confusion with deliveries, emergency response, and due to the fact that its location in the community village of Byfield. So it's just something to consider. I don't really need a response on that now, but I would really like you to maybe consider changing that to safety concerns and emergency response and deliveries and things of that nature, so there's no confusion in the future of, oh, it's Newbury, but it's in Byfield and that kind of thing. I know we're one community, one town, but they do call Byfield, and it's got its own zip code. So
I have
I'll
added
just
that in my
put-
notes.
Okay, I made that. Just make that as my comment,
Yeah, understood.
and we can move on from there. And like I said, there'll be more time for more questions, and comments, and I appreciate your presentation so far. All right, now we'll go on to the next. Before public, no, let's go on to public comment first. And Peter, I'll start out the public comment, but I'm just gonna be absent for a minute and I'll be right back. So if you could steer the ship, that would be great. For the public comment, do we have any raised hands, Kristen?
The hands are beginning, yep. I
Okay,
think the
great.
first one was Pam.
Okay.
And just a reminder that everybody,
Yeah.
please say your name and address.
I was just gonna go through that,
Oh.
before Pam starts. Please use the raise hand function to let us know you want to speak or ask questions or make comments. And state your name and address before speaking. And please try and keep your comments under 3 minutes or less. And so our first one is Pam, and Pam, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Pam Wall at 16 Withington Street, Newbury. And I have a couple questions. One is, thank you. I'm very glad to see some multifamily housing coming into our neighborhood to give people like me a bit more of an option for downsizing. So I have a couple questions. One is about the affordable units. How many bedrooms? What's is the plan for that? And is it possible, because affordable is often 80% AMI, which is often unaffordable for a lot of professionals even. And I'm wondering if those affordable units are all 80% or any 60 or 30% AMI, area mean income. That's my first question.
Mark, you're on mute.
If I might respond, Mr. Chairman?
Sure thing.
So there are, remember, there are ones, twos, and three-bedroom affordables. The vast majority are two-bedroom. I would imagine the board would want us to do some diversification of the type of unit that's affordable to be discussed during the site plan review process. I would guess that at least two of them would be two-bedroom, but maybe there's a desire to have one three-bedroom and one bedroom. Depends on how the discussions go. The window that we would open up is between 70 and 80% of AMI, which is typical for affordable housing projects under Chapter 40B. 80% gives you only the cream of the crop, and 70 to 80 opens up a bit more space.
And another question I had is just a thought about the pathway. If it's grass, I think it'll be very susceptible to ticks. So I would encourage you to consider making that a walking pathway another material other than grass, right in the grass.
Great. Thank you, Pam. That's a really good point. Appreciate it very much. Thanks for your participation tonight.
Well, thank you.
Jacob, I think you're next. If you give your name and address, please.
Right. Thank you, Peter, and I'm back.
Okay.
Thank
All
you so
right,
much.
thank you. Jacob Murray, 15 Parker River Drive. I'm one of the abutters. Thank you for letting me talk. Thank you guys for this presentation. I sent an email in, but I just want to make sure, I guess one thing was a little clear, I guess, that I didn't understand is this a full submission of the plans and everything?
This is the submittal that's required by the bylaw for
Okay.
site plan approval.
Because I went to review this and I had a hard time because I felt like there was a lot of details that were missing. And I went into the letter, but just for instance, something was mentioned before. I mean, there was a septic design that didn't have enough test pits in it. There was no reserve area for the septic test pits. The detention basins don't have all the test pits in them, including the one that's right next to the wetlands. And then I guess there were a lot of things. So let me start off. I'm a civil engineer. I do a lot of these subdivisions. And when I sat down to review the plans, I couldn't. I spent like an hour and then I was like, there's just so much data that's missing that I feel like when the data gets here, it's going to change everything. And so it's just not even worth the time to review things. So I guess just take a look at, I don't think these are all the details that can be go into now, but like for instance, the detention basin that's next to the wetlands, it appears the bottom of it is at the same elevation as the wetlands. So there's no 2-foot groundwater separation. Just to kind of give you kind of some other details, the stormwater report doesn't go standard by standard of the Massachusetts DEP standards and how each of one of those is met. The narrative for the site plan review was 1 page or 2-page long. And normally I'm seeing like every standard laid out, like this is what the Newbury standard is. This is how we meet it. This is section 7.3. This is how we meet it. And there just wasn't that kind of detail. And this is a big project. So I just hope that there'll be more, and I know there's going to be more meetings and a lot of these things to discuss. So just make sure that all those things are addressed, because what you have here could work, but right now I didn't see, like, it looks great, but I didn't see the numbers that showed that it was going to do that. One other quick thing is I've mentioned before, there's a lot of, I don't know if it's ledge or at least big boulders, outcrops on this site. That should be shown in the existing conditions plan. Because we don't know if one of those boulders or ledge outcrops is potentially in where the detention basin is, hidden around the various test pits that were done. So there's I don't know, I just felt like there was a lot of details that haven't yet necessarily been put into the drawings at this time. So.
All right. Thank you, Jacob.
You're welcome.
Is that all you had?
That's all I have.
All right. Well, thank you for your comments, Jacob. Who's next? Who's Kristen or Pete? Are you who's running the raised hand? I can't see him. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I can. Woody, sorry. Kathleen Sperling is next.
Okay, Kathleen, name and address, please. Thank you.
Hi, Kathleen Sperling, 10 Parker River Drive. I have 3 pages worth of notes here. I will try to get through it in 3 minutes if I can. My first concern is, given the fact that there is some boulders in parts of the land, which some of us have seen, is the developer going to obtain insurance for damages to adjacent property owners, And if that's true, that's great. Shouldn't the town require this for any type of building in this area? And I'd also like to know if they do have insurance, what their limits of liability are, and who do the adjacent property owners contract if there is issues with the hammering or blasting or whatever they're gonna do to the property. That's one thing. Next, the traffic impact study, as I don't want to repeat what Woody and Peter Pecos have to say, but if you turn right off of Central Court, you cannot see up the road now. And if you put a road in there with possible 88 cars coming out, there hasn't been an accident off of Central Court, but I can perceive there being an accident, either car to car, bicycle to car, or car to child, because the road curves and it's elevated in that particular section. So on page 2 of your traffic impact study, it says the lines of sight are okay and exceeded the minimum distance for safe operation. Being a resident in this area and going out all the time, I totally disagree. And Peter Pecos and Woody have the same concerns. Let's see. And taking down the trees will not resolve this. On page 7 of the study, of the traffic impact study, it addresses bike travel, which is already not sufficient because it goes into one lane in that particular area where the street goes out. And I think Kristen Grubbs has already knows the issues about biking because she tried to bike from Governors. As far as the changes in the placing of the sidewalks and the disability ramps, who is going to incur the costs of all of those? Is it going to be the developer, or is it going to be the town itself? The next thing I want to talk about is the site plan and the lighting on page 7, buildings 5 and 6. Any lights off the back of those buildings, which people will have if there's decking or even outdoor, is going to go directly into the properties, which I believe are 9 and 13 Central Parker River Drive. Let's see. I was wondering if they could put some more tree buffers in there. They say they're going to leave some of the vegetation, but I'm not sure if that will solve the problem. Drainage, the two retention pools will result in increased mosquitoes in the area. And how are you going to deal with that? Some of the plans show 2 septic fields and some of them show 3. So I'm not sure if there's 3 or there's 2. The other thing is the leaching field is close to 3 Central Court. And I think Mr. Scuderi is also online, who lives at 3 Central Court. He already is having problems with flooding off of those wetlands. And I don't know how the septic system in these buildings are going to affect his property, which already has problems from that culvert that Woody talked about. Let's see. Mr. Brown is already on, and he'll talk, I think, about the water supply protection district and the bulge that comes out behind buildings 5 and 6. Trying to stay under my 3 minutes. And I don't know if anybody recalls, but the fire station itself had to pump its leaching field all the way over to the exit on the on-ramp on 95. So they were already having problems with their property with leaching fields and had to have their leaching field all the way down there. I don't know how this will affect this property at all. As far as storm management, I think Jake went into some of that, and I would ask that the developer not only look at the peer review, but please look at Jake Murray's comments that he made, which are similar to the peer review. And I think that's all I have for this session. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Kathleen. In the future, there'll be other.
Yes.
chances for
Oh,
public
one
comment.
other
So-
thing, Woody, this particular meeting was not on the website. I only found out about it, well, first Kirsten emailed me. But I know you can put it in the newspaper, but a lot of people don't get the newspaper. So can this information be put on the website that there was going to be a meeting tonight? Because it wasn't. That was it. Thanks.
Okay, for future meetings, future public hearings, we'll make sure that it's up there. I didn't look for it myself, but with the public's concerned, it should be posted, so they usually are. Thank
At
you,
this
Kristen.
meeting, sorry, this meeting was posted, it was in the newspaper, and all abutters received, were mailed abutter notices. So it was posted as it always is. I think it was posted last Thursday.
No, I know they said it was in the newspaper, but several of us don't get the newspaper. I am not in a butter. I did not know about it. And when I went on the website tonight to try to figure out how to get on, it was not available.
I'm sorry, Kathleen, but the agenda is on the same place that all agendas are. And I can guarantee that. I'm sorry it was hard to find.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Kathleen. Next, Kristen, next raised hand, please.
Murphy.
Yes, Murphy, name and address, please, and you are muted at this moment. Yep. Go ahead.
Hi, thank you. It's Chris Murphy, 9 Parker River Drive. And I have 2 relatively quick questions. The first is on the screen. Between units 5-1 through 6-1, there appears to be a catch basin in back of those homes. And I'd like to know if they're already anticipating drainage problems on those, because I don't see it anywhere else. I live directly behind there, and I already have significant flooding with any rainstorm. So I'd like to know what the significance is of those. And then my next question is regarding Mr. Smith's comments about the dark green areas remaining forested. Last week when I was working from home, I already had an excavator 50 feet from my back door. And there's now a dirt road where the excavator was, and they've already taken down many, many small trees just by driving over it. The back of my house, the appearance is already significantly different. So my question is, do they plan on replanting any of those trees and restoring it to the forest appearance, or was that just a comment without merit? That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Kristen, do we want them to respond to that, or do we want to get through all the public comments? What do you think is best here? Question.
Yeah, it sounds like we could continue with public comment, and then maybe if there are any responses, we could do it that way.
Okay, we'll do the responses at the end. Thank you, Kristen. All right, so the next raised hand, Kristen, please.
Kathleen Pearson.
Hi,
Hey,
good evening.
Kathleen.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Name and address, please.
Hi. Kathleen Pearson, 21 Seaview Lane, formerly of 36 Central Street, the butter property off of Central. I have a number of civil engineering questions. First, I would just like to agree with all the abutters that there are drainage issues there and flooding issues. That's poor soils and boulders. And right now, according to this, as they mentioned, it's difficult to read these plans, but it looks like you're regrading up behind 36 Central Street and sending that water directly towards that. As far as the site view out of that, everybody agrees who's lived in Central Street or in that area. When you come around that corner going to the east, there's a sight vision. You can't see. There's an obstruction. They speed up in anything. So I don't think that sight view is clear enough for all this additional traffic coming from this property. Number 3, the width of the streets right now. We have a new development over on Old Town in Newbury, across from Tenacrop Farm, which is Seagate. That street is so narrow that if a visitor parks on the street and a truck comes by, it's so tight. So I can just imagine they're going to have parking problems if you have a number of people visiting, or if you have a birthday party or something. How is that? Here that what are the diameters and quantity of trees on this plan. There's not a, it doesn't have to be removed and what's being replaced. That's usually shown on a landscape plan. I do appreciate that you did reduce the quantity of units from 80 down to 44 with 50% open space. I still think that the 2.5 story buildings are too high and are going to tower over the neighborhood. And I'd like to know whether or not that they are going to stand above the actual tree height, and you could be able to see them from the street on Central Street. They made a very good point about the vegetation between the buffers of the butters. It looks like when you go to the west side of the site that there's not much vegetation between the new site and the butter site. It'd be nice if you can give everybody some privacy. I'd like to see what they're gonna do for a vegetation for a landscape plan. For plantings. And that's all. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Kathleen. Any more raised hands, Kristen?
There is Nino Scuderi.
Okay, just state your name and address, please, and your comments or questions.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, this is Antonino Scuderi. I'm at 3 Central Court. I'm a director butter. I have some concerns, quite a few concerns that have already been discussed, but also the septic system. Do we know like what the size of the tanks is going to hold? How much is going to be dispersed into the soils daily? You know, I purchased my property in 2014, and when I purchased it, they had to redo the septic because it failed Title V because of the water table. So my septic system had to be, my leach field had to be raised. Is this leach field going to be raised? Because right now the existing property, when I look at it, is a lot lower than my leach field. And again, I have a lot of concerns with the drainage. My yard pools quite frequently. I submitted an email showing pictures of the hydrologic connection in my property. So I just wanted to see how they were going to address all those issues. You know, the grading, I looked at the plans and it looks like the hill's going to be taken down quite a significant amount. That's also going to add to the water in the area by removing all that. So I just think, you know, with this, the size of this development, it's going to introduce a lot more water and a lot of issues to me and a lot of the other abutters. As far as the leach fields, I don't know what the guidelines are. Is there a certain guideline that it has to be away from the property line? Because it looks like it's right on the property line, the edge of the leach fields right now. I guess that's about it.
Okay, thank you so much for your questions and comments. Next raised hand, Kristen?
Those are all the raised hands at the moment.
Okay, great. Written public comments. Do you have a list of written public comments, Kristen?
Yes, so the comments that came in April are all posted on the website. So some of the writers are with us tonight, but I'll just read them. Scuderi at 3 Central Court, J. Murray, 15 Parker River Drive, K. Murphy, 9 Parker River Drive, and a comment from Brown at 11 Parker Drive. I've also received some over the last week, which I haven't gotten up on the website yet, but I will do so as soon as possible.
Okay, thank you. Does any of the planning board members, town council, or staff have any additional questions at this time? Or comments for that matter? Hearing none, I'll move on.
All right, Woody,
yeah.
I'd just like to make one comment if that's okay.
Yep.
I would like to encourage that the walking trail be accessible to the public. I think, as we've heard, safe places to walk from your home are limited in this particular neighborhood. And I think that would be a real asset to some of the homeowners who live nearby, but won't be homeowners of Newbury Heights. So I just wanted to encourage that to be considered by the applicant.
Okay, thank you, Kristen. And back to you, Kristen, as well. Will you update us on any peer reviews at this point in time?
So because the delay with this public hearing starting, we did begin the stormwater review. So as mentioned, there is a comment letter from the town's engineer peer reviewer, Joseph Serwatka. So that's the comment letter that the applicant and I have spoken about. They will be responding in writing to those comments. And I appreciate the comments tonight about some of the other public comment letters also being shared. So I will make sure to do that with peer review for the stormwater and engineering. I know some of our department staff are looking into components of the application in more detail. I expect to get some comments from Martha Taylor, who's still on staff in a part-time capacity. She is the former planning director. She's also a registered architect. So I think she will be submitting some comments to the planning board regarding the architecture and design components of the property or of the proposal. In addition, we sent out an RFP for peer review for the traffic study, and we have chosen peer review consultant, MDM consultants. Robert Michaud will be helping the town with that. They are engaged, but just over the last few days. So my anticipation is that their report might not be back in time for the next planning board meeting, but probably the one after that. If we want to consider, as we've talked about, sort of identifying different topics to focus on at the additional continued public hearings. And we also will be having some review of the fiscal impact report as well as the environmental report. So I will continue to keep everyone posted on the peer review of those components of the application.
Okay, thank you. And as anticipated, we probably should have a site walk at this site. When would we like to schedule a site walk, and when is the applicant and the board members available? Does anyone have any suggestions?
I think it'd be great to do that before the next meeting if possible. I feel like people are pretty busy over the next week, but maybe if the board's available, we could look at the first week of June. I don't know. I can help coordinate that. I know they're still residents on the property, so we probably have some coordination to do in terms of when the board can do that walk.
Okay, so to the applicant and to the board, we will schedule a site walk through Kristen and anticipate having the first week of June.
I think Lisa has a question.
Yes, Lisa, go right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to remind folks of two things or ask questions. So as the board knows, we had the mishap with the Zoom company at the last meeting. And I would ask the applicant if they would be willing to submit an agreement to extend the hearing process by 30 days to accommodate for that lost time, just to make sure you have enough time to properly deal with the application. That's the first request I would have. And then the next thing is just to remind the board, I know Mr. Kinter kind of shied away earlier related to the materials, but in fact, this is slightly different. This application is slightly different than your standard site plan review. In fact, you are allowed very specifically to look at materials and design under the new bylaw. So perhaps the applicant could be more specific next time they come in related to the types of materials they are using, keeping in mind the comments that Mr. Kinter made. And I'm sure you're going to get the comments from Martha Taylor as well. But I think the more specific information related to the architectural design would be appropriate for the board to receive.
Mr. Chairman, I'm more than happy to give an extension of 30 days. I'll do the paperwork with your counsel and we'll get that taken care of right away. Right now you have me on tape saying that, so they're changed my mind. With regard to the materials, we've already started preparing a list and we will submit that prior to the next meeting. And was that everything that you had mentioned, Lisa, or was there anything
No,
else?
that's all I had. But I did want to know when you planned, Mr. Chair, to extend, to continue the meeting to.
Yeah.
What are you looking at?
We were looking at June, our next meeting,
Which is
correct.
what date?
June 4th, correct, Kristen?
It only makes sense if the back and forth between Christian and Mr. Sirwatka is at least through one round of peer review and response.
And
There's not a lot of time with a holiday.
right. That's my concern, given the fact that you just had your test pits this week. It sounds like you've got some redesign that's happening with your septic system and addressing Mr. Sawaka's comments, and we're not going to have the traffic by then either. So perhaps you go out to the meeting after that, which would be when, Mr. Chair?
June 18th.
I think that I'll ask Mr. Smith whether or not he thinks that's adequate to go back and forth with Mr. Sirwatka.
Yeah, I think that should be fine. I don't know if we'll have opportunity for Vanessa to get the traffic comments and have opportunity to, review and respond to those at that point. But I guess I'll defer to the chairman and to Lisa and Kristen as well. Is that something that you think we should try and make sure is all squared away before the next time we meet? Really, that's entirely up to you. I'm happy to come and speak to our specific civil issues, but entirely up to you if you want to shoot for that second date in June, or if we want to push it one more and hopefully be able to tackle the architecture, the traffic, and any remaining outstanding potential items for engineering. Up to you.
Given everybody's summer schedule and knowing the traffic engineer that's been selected as the peer review consultant, my guess is that June 18th is going to be difficult for them. So I would prefer that we get civil, at least the peer review, responses to it, and responses to the responses from Mr. Sirwatka, so that there's been a thorough vetting of the civil issues on the 18th. And it sounds like you're suggesting, Christian, that you can do that.
Yes.
Okay, so then why don't we go with that, and then we can find another date down the road for traffic, and because it's going to take a little longer, I'm sure.
Yeah, for that study to be done. Yes. I kind of agree with you now that it's been stated. So we'll look to continue the public hearing to June 18th.
Before you do, Mr. Chairman, site walk, I've texted Mike Ivas and he says first week of June is good for him. Pick a date. I'm sure he'll make you attempts to meet you there. And he'll communicate with Kristen on that.
All right, so we'll set a date for the site walk through Kristen, and the board will be contacted so that we can find a date that works for us.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. If no one else has any questions or comments, I would entertain a motion to continue this public hearing to June 18th at 7:15.
You have that, sir.
All right, thank you, Pete. And do I have a second?
A second?
All right, thank you, Larry. Roll call vote, Peter Pecos,
Yes.
Larry Murphy,
Yes.
Scott Kenta,
Yes.
and Steve Mangian.
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. All right, thank you all, and we'll see you on the 18th.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Yep, have a good night. All right, next thing on the agenda, new business. Boston, 84 Boston Road. Assessors map R36-0-23A. Request for extension of site plan review decision. And do we have Kevin Whitney with us from KNR? Does anyone see him on the participant list?
I don't see his name. There's one attendee who's on phone. I don't know.
Yep, my iPhone, I see that now, so I've switched over. Not hearing from Kevin at this time. I guess we will continue this matter at a later date. All
Just
right,
point of clarification, what do you, is this something that's going to be expiring in the near future? This
yes,
extension?
that's a good question. What is the expiration date, Kristen?
You give me a minute, I'll look it up.
Okay, thank you.
And Kristen, this seems like this was a long time ago. Was this during the whole COVID thing where you got the extension through COVID?
Yes, but even with that, so sorry, his letter does not have it. I mean, I'm not putting my hands on it right away. Do you want to do you want to go to the minutes and I'll keep looking, Woody? Would that work?
Yes, definitely, and we'll get back to that matter.
Okay, sorry.
All right, thank you, Kristen, and hopefully you can find it. All right, so we'll move on to meeting minutes to keep things moving here. We have meeting minutes for approval, April 29th, 2025, and May 7th, 2025. Has everyone had the opportunity to read the minutes from April 29th meeting? And does anyone have any edits for the April 29th meeting? Hearing none, I didn't.
Actually, there is one thing, Woody.
Go
On
ahead, Larry.
the April 29th minutes, that was the town meeting. In the caption, it says May 7th, 2025. I think that should be April 29th, shouldn't it?
Yes. So we'll note that for correction. Any other edits or comments? None?
Not for me.
Okay. Hearing none, I entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes from April 29th with the notation that Larry has made that the date is wrong and it should say April 29th.
So move.
Do I have a second?
Sure thing.
Thank you, Peter. Roll call vote, Peter Pecos,
Sure.
Larry,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes, sir.
Steve? We might have lost Steve. I vote yes as well. And now moving on to the May 7th meeting,
Yeah.
meeting minutes.
Woody, I unmuted and I voted yes.
Okay, thank you so much, Steve, and that'll be noted. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Now, May 7th, 2025. Does anyone have any comments or questions or edits on the meeting minutes for May 7th? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes for May 7th.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Scott. Roll call vote, Peter?
I'm going to abstain. I didn't see these yet. My
Okay,
apologies.
great. Yep, no worries. Larry,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
and Steve,
Yes.
and I vote yes as well. And goes pass as well. Thank you for the meeting minutes. The next thing on the agenda is the plans report, and we'll roll the question that was previously stated for K and R into your planners report, Kristen, if you have an update on the K and R expiration, and then roll right into your plans report, please.
Okay, they had
Thank you.
previously submitted an extension request that had been approved. And it will expire the end of this month. So the request was made in writing to the board on May 13th. I believe that was the date of the letter. So I guess it's at the discretion of the board whether you would like to consider that extension without the applicant here. He had told me he would be here and he has the Zoom link, so I'm not sure why he's not in attendance at the moment.
Was there a reason for the extension?
Because it's expiring.
No, but is there a reason it needs to be extended?
The reason he explained was he's been in the queue for his engineer to complete the as-built plan. According to Kevin, his site work is completed and everything is ready to be closed out. He's just been waiting for his engineer to complete the submittal to the town.
Who is his engineer?
I believe it's Millennium Engineering.
And the as-built presumably would have to be reviewed by Joe Suwatka.
Correct. He had requested 3 months. Woody and I had talked a little bit and thought maybe longer than that would be a useful thing, just in case the back and forth on peer review or anything else took a little longer.
What are the wishes of the board?
I kind of
Peter,
think that 3 months should, if it's done, that should be enough time to kind of button it up. This has been a long project.
Yes.
And I'm not
I
even
agree.
sure if the buffer that we had talked about was ever put into place, the tree buffer. This was a 10-foot tree buffer between the two properties. I don't know if that was ever put into place.
I know there's a condition of payment to the tree fund that I did talk about with the applicant. He said he'd bring a check by, so I'm waiting on that. But there probably are a few things that will need to get reviewed. I haven't been on the site recently, however.
Because I remember there was a big disruption to that whole natural corridor when all those trees were knocked down and stuff was just kind of opened right up. So I don't know.
And I question whether it's downward facing lighting on the building. And I know the last time we saw the applicant, there was a comments of questions of soft curb or hard curb. And we deferred him to get to work on some other stuff, and we'd have that conversation in the future, and we haven't seen him since. So I don't know where we go from here. If we just let this go and we'll take it up at another time, or if there's a motion to give him an extension.
Well, I think it clearly we're not going to have this wrapped up by the end of the month. I'm okay with the 3 months. I think it's a lot easier to grant an extension before the expiration than after the expiration.
All right.
I'll
Pete,
follow you. You'll leave, Larry.
okay, so I'll take that as a motion by Larry and a second by Pete.
Okay with
Okay.
me?
Very good. That's for the 3-month extension, just to clarify. Pete, how do you vote?
Yes.
Larry
Yes.
and Scott,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
and I vote yes as well, and we'll get him on a future agenda to figure some of the stuff out. All right, and now I don't see anything else on the agenda. Unless Kristen's got anything else to say.
No, thank you everyone for a good first public hearing for our first MCMAT submission. Thought that went well. Look forward to the future work and involvement of the community. And oh, don't forget, if you are able, we'd love to see any of you at the Plum Island Turnpike feasibility study public meeting, which is a week from today. It's at the Parker River National Wildlife Refuge headquarters at 5:30. And also want to give a shout out to the Open Space Committee that had held a really excellent public meeting last night, working on the open space plan and update on behalf of the town. There was great attendance, and our planning assistant, Sadie Woodward, did a great job, as well as the committee members. So just lots of good work going on all fronts.
That's the 28th.
It's the 28th, correct?
Okay, thank you.
And then
And,
next week, next Thursday's sidewalk on 105 High, right?
Thank you. Yes.
Okay.
108 May, yeah. 105 High, Seagate Sidewalk, 2:00, Thursday, the
Yeah,
29th.
I don't, I just looked at my weather forecast, my 10-day, I don't see a nor'easter on that day.
Sounds
Better
good.
than tomorrow.
Right, and I hope to see you all there next Thursday, and other than that, if there's nothing else, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And do I have a second?
Second.
All right, very good. All those in favor, Peter, Larry, Scott, Steve?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. And Steve, feel better.
Yes, feel better, Stephen, and welcome to the board. Congratulations. We look forward to working with you. And on that note, good night, everyone.
Night.
Good night.
God bless.
Thanks, Woody.